And will it be on my page?
Mhm.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Mi Gente On Air. We are setting up our show tonight that we will broadcast to you live stream here on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're welcoming everybody to come on in to the show as we have a great show tonight that's going to inform you a little bit about an organization that has been around a long time, has a long history in Saginaw, and I've got some great information about the organization, the UAW Local 668. And we got the president of the organization. He's going to be with us today. So let's get come into the room, get comfortable, and sit back for about a good hour and be informed about not only the organization itself, but Latinos and our contributions to the area, because that's what Mi Gente on Air has been about since we started over a year ago. Latino culture, concerns, and contributions. And yes, I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and I thank you for being with me here tonight on Mi Gente on Air. Mi Gente on Air is live stream, of course, on Monday evenings here around 7:30, whenever we finally get set up and then we start the show, but it's also then broadcast on Sunday evenings at 8 p.m. And then it's on podcasts on your favorite podcast channels, whether it's on Amazon Music or it's on Apple Music, or what's the big one that we all kind of turned into?
iTunes.
iTunes, yes. So you got the option of actually watching it live stream on Monday nights or actually listening on the radio on WSGW 100.5 FM or 790 AM. That's at 8 p.m. Or you can, at your leisure, look at the podcast that is on the internet at any time. And we hope you will listen. And we've got all the shows dating back from last year in November of 2020, right in the peak and height of when we were into the starting um, the second wave, if you will, of the pandemic. So it's all kind of been new territory, and this live stream that my producer Chandler has made me get involved in. It's not like it's been a big fight, right, Chandler? But Chandler is upgrading the show, and I think we're getting a lot of different feedback and all. And I want to know, Chandler, are you seeing any comments coming in at all? Because I want to welcome my viewing audience the ability to ask questions if they want. Just type it in, as well as make any comments. We asked them earlier to give a shout out, if they could, to anybody who worked at the gray iron plant in the history of within their families, and to also give a shout out to anybody who is in local 668. So that's why we go live stream, so we can have more of an interactive show with our audience and participate to kind of give us a feel as to where we're at, what we're doing. Are they uh, approving the show? Are they disapproving the show? What have you? But are you seeing any of those comments?
The reactions have been very, very positive overall, and not that's not even counting how widely it's spread.
Yeah.
It's getting a lot of views out there even after we live stream. So it's getting a lot of positive feedback from the public and inside the studio. They really like what we're
Well,
doing here.
I hope they are, and I hope they. What we're trying to do, really, is make sure that Latinos in our community, the Great Lakes Bay region, are at the table, that we are included in the greater scheme of our community, because we're a part of it and we have been. And so I'm happy, and I feel very blessed to be able to bring this show to you each week. It's work. It's there's a lot of prep in it, as well as just having some of the knowledge that I have as being the publisher of Mi Gente magazine for the last 27 years. And I welcome your feedback. And I know that one of the shows that we have had here, it explained exactly what we were doing. And I kind of wanted to just explain some of that to you tonight, because it's moved really fast. In January 2022, we came on here and we started live streaming, and Chandler is like pushing it and pushing it. And I said, okay, finally. And here we are live streaming. And I have no clue on how he does this, but I'm glad I have this producer, and we're going to bring it to you live like this every week.
It's been so much fun.
Yeah.
So much fun.
For who? For you or for me?
Well, I hope you're having fun.
Yeah,
I'm loving it.
I told you, if I wasn't having fun, then I wasn't going to do it, right? So we're having fun so far. And last week's show with Bobby, that was really nice, to be able to reminisce and to talk about the history of rock and roll, because here we have a living legend here in Saginaw, the group Question Mark and the Mysterians, and they lived it. They actually lived it in the 60s, with some of those other great bands, the Beatles, of course, Rolling Stones, all of them. And so it was nice to kind of reminisce and talk a little bit about that. So
it was very exciting.
And the thing about Chandler here, he told me, he goes, I feel so uncultured, when we're talking about these shows that involve Latinos or, just a whole different culture from his own. And I said, well, stick with me and you're going to learn a lot. And I think you have, right?
Oh, yeah. I've learned a ton. It's surprising how much you can learn in such a short time.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to throw my glasses on because, as you all know, I can't see without them in reading. I want to look and see if there's any chats, which I don't see still. So I need to put this on to my Facebook page, right? And share it.
Yeah.
Okay. That way we get a little bit more. And then we can start the show. Let's see.
We will be taking a few minutes to prepare, and during that time we encourage you to comment questions or just say hello, and we will be taking a few minutes to prepare, and that's Larry's phone in the background if you can hear it.
Sorry about that again.
Just say hello. So, Larry, do you want us to go into the break before we start recording now?
Yes.
All right.
So we're going to go into break, and we'll be back here in 3 minutes with the beginning of Mi Gente On Air.
Welcome to Mi Gente On Air on 100.5 and 790 News Radio WSGW and online WSGW.com. Now, here is your host, Larry Rodarte.
Hey, welcome to Mi Gente On Air, where we try to promote positive images of Latinos in our community as part of the great community of people that make up the Great Lakes Bay region. I am your host, Larry Rodarte, and thank you for being with us today. We are in a snowy January, and our area is getting hit with beautiful white stuff. I hope everyone's staying safe. How is everyone doing in radio listening area? Radio listening land, I should say. I want to take the opportunity to invite viewers as well as we live stream the show from the Alpha Media studios here and look for viewer participation. Today, we are producing an informative show surrounding the United Auto Workers, the UAW Local 668. There is a deep history of the organization in Saginaw. And did you know that in 2019, the members of UAW Local 668 celebrated a century of manufacturing at Saginaw Metal Castings operations in Saginaw, Michigan? Many of us know that as the Gray Iron Plant. I still call it the Gray Iron Plant. But workers at the company, which supply parts for General Motor vehicles, have processed 45 million tons of iron and 2 billion pounds of aluminum over the past 100 years. 100 years. Can you imagine here in Saginaw? The plant currently employs 476 workers, including members of UAW Local 668 and IAM Lodge 2839. And for many in our area, our forefathers came here and found employment. For many Mexicanos, they came to work in the fields as migrant workers and stayed as they found employment at the Gray Iron Plant. It was their American dream. And that's why many of us are here today. Well, today I have Tony Mann, a young man who is serving as the president of Local 668. I just found out he's a father of 7. Can you believe that? And guess what? He's also the first Latino president of this union. Help me welcome Tony Mann to WSGW Studios and the Mi Gente On Air show. Welcome, Tony. Good evening.
Good evening, Larry. Thank you for having me.
Tony, I am really impressed with the way that I have seen you operate, and I've known you now for about, well, since the strike, really, in 2018?
2019.
19.
Yeah.
Okay. That's when I met Tony. And I want my listeners to know a little bit about you, who you are, the man, the father of 7, and a little bit about your background and upbringing here in the Great Lakes Bay region.
So I was born and raised here in Saginaw by 2 wonderful parents, Tony Solano and Debbie Mann. Luckily, they instilled their hard work. A lot of that rubbed off onto me, and I put that to the test every day. I graduated from Carleton High School. I went to junior high, which now a lot of the young kids call middle school. So at South, and then elementary school at Jerome.
Wow. So you're a Cavalier, huh?
Oh, yeah.
A Cavalier in the house here.
That's right.
Well, Tony, I want to ask you, your background with the UAW, how much of that did you know about as you became an employee of the plant? And I'm asking you that question because I want to set it up, here. So tell me a little bit, undoubtedly it has grown your appreciation for the union and the UAW, but tell me what did you know about it?
So my father hired into the Gray Iron Foundry 6/18 of 68. I hired in 6/18 of 99. So I bet you can guess what numbers I play on the 3-digit just about every day.
Yeah.
But I remember back in the mid 80s that he would take me to the union meetings, and I grew up union. My uncles, my aunts, basically I grew up UAW through and through.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hired into General Motors at the young age of 19, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that was be involved in the union, make the union movement move forward, and the best way to do that was by being involved.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny you say that because I have talked with you before, and I've expressed that my grandfather, Joseph V. Diaz, he was so involved with the union back in the late 60s that I can remember. As a little boy, he was so involved, and he was going to meetings, and he had folders and binders that I would see him lay out, and I would hang around him. And it was just always known within our family that Local 668 really meant something. And that's why, it has played a big part in my life. And when you say, you were raised union, I would have always been for the people. And I think that's probably part of the reason was because of my grandfather, and that upbringing. And what I mean for the people is like, even today, when we're there's there's so much strife in the political realm or whatever, it's like I've always been for the people. And I've always said that on this show. And I think that's part of it. But, I want to find out exactly from you, how do you go as an employee of the plant? And we're talking, what was it? And in 1999, when you hired him, what was the name of Gray Iron at that time?
I believe it was still Gray Iron. I think it changed over to SMCO somewhere in the early 2000s. But I didn't hire into the Gray Iron, so luckily I finally ended up there. The Gray Iron has always been the facility that I wanted to end up at, because that's where my father was at. That's where he retired from. That's where I'm going to retire from. And I started off at Delphi, which was part of General Motors back in the late 90s. I hired in 1999. That's where I hired in at. And then when they spun off and they were no longer part of GM, I left in 2003, and I ended up in Lansing, two different plants in Lansing, Local 602, Local 652. Spent a few years there, and then ended up at Flint Truck and Bus, Local 598. I'll always have a place in my heart for the truck plant. It is a wonderful place, a lot of hardworking folks down there. But I spent 14 years there, and I was ready to come home. And thank God I got the opportunity to come back home to Saginaw after a long journey, long round robin around Lansing and Flint. And then I ended up back in Saginaw, and this is where I plan to stay.
So you probably put a lot of miles on your vehicles, right? like so many out there that do that.
Oh, that's an understatement.
Yeah. Well, I want to find out from you, how does a young man become president of the local union in their town?
Just unlucky, Larry. No, I'm just kidding.
Well, it's a big responsibility.
It is. A baby steps. So when I hired into Delphi, about 2 years into my career, I had a gentleman named Jim Hart, who to this day I admire. Talk to him from time to time, not as much as I'd like to, because we're both still very busy men. But Jim seen something in me that I didn't see in myself. And he said, "Hey, Tony, how would you like to be involved in the bargaining unit and be my alternate committee man?" And he was the district committee man at the time. So I filled in. The alternate committee man at the time was on sick leave. I filled in from time to time, and it grew into a passion. So from there, I filled in spots in Lansing, and then really took the big leap in Flint Truck and Bus, where I was elected district committee man, and then later on district shop committee man, and then of course moved into the president's position here in SMCO.
Well, that really is a trajectory of stability for you as you came back into Saginaw. And it really speaks volume. It has to your persona as a person, and that they would have faith in you to be in that position.
Yeah, believe me, I was shocked myself, but I think most people see that I'm passionate about the job. I'm passionate about being union. I love what I do, and I think that shows in my work.
Well, I think you're being modest too, because we've got feedback already from some of our viewers. We've got Maria Medina Reina, who gives saludos de Guadalajara, Mexico. So we've actually got somebody from Mexico who's watching the show. Pedro Santos also says, "Hey, Tony, keep doing a good job." And Pedro Santos, and shout out to his wife, Janet, who always comes into the Unión Cívica Mexicana for patitos just about every week, Thursday and Friday. And Sandra Kubiak also is saying, "We're all so proud of you, Tony. love Aunt Sandy. So Sandy is your wife,
No, Sandy's my aunt.
your aunt.
My aunt.
Oh, love.
Yes.
She's saying love. Oh, I got it. I got it. I'm not reading it wrong. And Juan Patricia, that's him and his wife, Chantaka. He says, "What's up, Local 668?" And Larry, he says, "You're doing a great job, mijo." I guess he's talking to me on that one. That's my cousin John. So we got family on there. And if you've got any other comments, we've also got Mrs. Paula Reese. She's watching from the state of Georgia. Also, a Saginaw fellow Saginaw person that lived here many years ago. But I want to talk a little bit more in regard to my experience with Local 668 again. I remember my mother always saying, that my grandfather was a committee man as well with the local. And when you said that word just a few minutes ago, it just brings back, those memories for me and how I would see him at the table, and he was just so dedicated to the union. And he would go off to Washington, D.C. for meetings, and he was always concerned about the union. And when he passed in 1971, I mean, that's 50 years ago. I remember the article that came out in the Saginaw News, and it mentioned Joseph E. Diaz succumbs in Mexico, and it talks about his involvement with the local, because he and I know former Mayor Henry Nickelberry were so involved. Their concern, of course, was for people of color, but for everybody. But they wanted to make sure that people of color were represented as well, and didn't always have just the dirty jobs that sometimes were way back in the 50s and the 60s. So, the reason I bring that all up is because there's a tie-in here. When Tony and I met in 2019, I thought it was 2018, but it was 2019 during the strike, and he could talk a little bit about that. But they were striking in, it was 2019 in May, June.
September.
Okay, September. Tony's saying September. Well, I had a cousin who worked at the plant. Her name was Tina Rodarte. Do you remember Tina?
That's correct. Yes, I remember Tina very well.
And Tina said, "Hey, do you think you can make some patitos for us over, for the strikers that were striking out in the parking lot of the First Ward area?" And I said, "Tina, yes, absolutely, because my heart has always been with the union, like I say." And I remember we made a tray of 20 patitos. I think we did 2 of those trays, and Lupe Silvas and I can't remember who else represented the Unión Cívica Mexicana. We went out there, we delivered them with our banner from the Unión Cívica, and I think there's a picture, Chandler, if you can put that first, the first montage of pictures up on there, you'll see where myself and Lupe and members of Local 668 are out there in the parking lot. They're striking. We're feeding them patitos because we thought it was that important. And it was really, for me, had kind of come full circle, because my grandfather Joseph E. Diaz founded the Civica. He was one of 11 men that founded the Civica. The Civica is now in 2019 cooking for the Local 668 that he so strongly supported. And Tony Mann is the president there. I was introduced to him, and I was so proud. And I remember lifting my fist in the air. Do you remember that, Tony?
Yeah.
Because you were the first Latino president at the Local 668. And I was just so proud of that. And getting emotional. Isn't that crazy? But, so it kind of all ties in, with supporting the people, just like the Unión Cívica Mexicana did in 1945, 77 years ago when it came into existence. And so many of the Mexicanos, the men, even my great grandfather, Sonovio Diaz, he worked at the plant, and he got bronchitis because of the jobs that he was doing there in the 40s and the 50s. And so many of the benefits that, those men back in the 50s and the 60s, they fought for, many of the workers today are benefiting from the work from those early committee men and those union members.
And that's
Wouldn't
true.
you say, Tony?
Absolutely. And that's a lot of the new hires and the new people, the temporary people that come in as well. We try to explain to them that it's the unions that fought for the 40-hour work week. Management doesn't want to pay you time and a half for anything over 40 hours. They don't want to pay you double time for Sunday. They don't want to give you health care benefits. They don't want to give you vacation days. It's the unions, the UAW, the IAM, the CWA, the IBEW. It's these groups who fought hand in hand, the AFL-CIO. All of these groups come together to form this bond to keep the hourly workforce safe and fair, safe work practices. And I think a lot of the folks who aren't from a union family or were never exposed to that really don't understand the benefits that the unions have brought to the blue collar workers.
Yes, yes. And when you hired in 1999, did you ever think that you would be the president of the union?
No, that's funny, Larry, that you say that, because a thought just crossed into my head right now. So when I hired in to Delphi, which was GM at the time, over there on M46, the main complex, my dream job was I wanted to be a third shift janitor. I mean, I wanted to drive the scrubber around, and that was my dream job, because it just seemed like it was just a very social job. You always seen the janitors talking with everybody and able to be out there and talk to people, and that was always me. I like to engage with people and find out what was going on in other areas, and if there were issues that needed to be addressed, so on and so forth. So no, back to your question, I never imagined being the president of a local union.
Well, like I said, it's a huge responsibility, and we're so glad that you have taken that on. And part of what Tony and the local 668 has done for the Unión Cívica Mexicana in 2019, I believe it was, or maybe it was 2020. I can't remember. With this pandemic, my dates are getting all thrown off. But we had a call out from the Unión Cívica Mexicana because we have our maintenance guy. His name is Lupe Silvas. He's 78 years old. At the time, I think he was 75. And he's really dedicated to the Unión Cívica Mexicana, him and his wife, Mary Hernandez Silvas. And Lupe, for the last probably 6-7 years, has cut the grass around the area of the Civica. And we had this old lawnmower that just kept breaking down. I kept putting money into it. We bought a second used lawnmower. Again, that was breaking down. So Lupe, in his shed at the Civica, had 2 broken down lawnmowers. So I just had it. I said, I don't want to put any more money into this. We need to do a fundraiser. We need to sell patitos. I don't know what we need to do, but we need to do something so that we could buy a lawnmower for Lupe for the Civica. And lo and behold, we put the word out. We had a GoFundMe account, I think. And what was really touching for us was when Tony Mann here reached out and says, "Hey, we want to help support this effort for the Unión Cívica." And between Tony and the attorney law firm,
That's right, Dowd, Smith, and Wagner,
they sent $1,000 check to us for Lupe's lawnmower. And with the other money that we were able to raise, we were able to buy a beautiful lawnmower for Lupe. And I think one of the pictures shows that there, that you'll be able to see on the screen. There's Lupe and Tony right there in the Civica. And there's the lawnmower that Lupe got in 2020, I believe it was. Or was it 2019?
No, it was 2020.
Oh, okay.
Yep, it was 2020.
So it was during the pandemic, and it just didn't seem it. There's Tony again with Lupe, and there's Chela, and there's the patitos that we sell over at 2715 Wadsworth every Thursday and Friday. I'm putting a plug in for that. But it went hand in hand, and we were so thankful, so appreciative that Lupe was able to get a lawnmower with the help of local 668 and their funds and their sponsorship of that. Has us having beautiful lawns in the summertime. Every summer since has been beautiful. It's only been 2 summers, but so we're really thankful for that. And I wanted to bring that up because that's why, when we are for the people, we work together and we partner, we can do some great things for our community. And what did you think, Tony, when you went over there and you presented the check to us, and we had a small crew of us working and making those patitos, and we had the representatives from the law firm? What were you thinking? What was going through your head?
The big thing was to help out our local community. That's what the unions were there for. That's what we're going to continue to be there for. You know, you guys helped us out during our time of need without even asking. You guys show up on the strike line. You support us. Some of you were even out there. You included Larry, holding up picket signs, supporting the union and knowing what union means. And really, when the call went out that you guys needed some help, I didn't hesitate. I basically got my executive board together and said, "Hey guys, you know, we need to do something." And of course, Dowd Smith and Wagner, once they found out what we were doing, they wanted to jump on board too. And that's just people helping people. And that's how unions got started.
Yes. Yes, definitely. That's wonderful to hear that background story. That some information that I'm not even privy to, but you know, that speaks to who Tony and his organization is. And I want to thank you again from the Unión Cívica Mexicana. We have Lisa Mora Jackson, who comes to the Civica. She's been a big supporter. Her mother was the queen of the Civica many years ago. And I just want to give a shout out to her because she has been with the union for 25 years. And she is the Latina financial secretary. Not that they have to be a Latina, but they just put that in there. But she's the financial secretary for the local, and she's been voted in multiple elections.
That's correct. So she has been voted in 3 times unopposed. Nobody ran against her.
All right, Lisa Mora Jackson. I remember when your mom was at the Adelante Awards, and she was we sometimes bring back the queens from early on, and her mother was there, and I remember saying Mora, that last name. I'm very familiar with it, but just to see Lisa Mora Jackson doing so well, I'm very proud of her, as well as Diana Barajas, who's been there right along with Lisa 25 years. I mean, these women are strong women. Lisa Fee, she comes in to the Civica, buys our patitos, but I know they're all hard workers and strong women. And, you know, when I think of that picture, you know, the lady with the fists, you know,
Oh, absolutely.
I think of them all the time because they're wearing the scarves, or, you know, Lisa comes in sometimes, she's got all kinds of not equipment, but her dress, the way she's dressed for her job and for her work. And I'm like, wow, she works hard for the money. You know, that old song.
Well, you know, Local 668 is lucky to have Lisa Mora Jackson. I mean that girl is just on top of her game 24/7. And anytime being a new president, if I have a question, a comment, a concern, you know, for lack of better words, she is my sounding board. She is the person that I go to when I have issues. So we are lucky to have her at 668.
Yeah, and we're going to talk more a little bit about Lisa in regard to the Cinco de Mayo celebration in the second half of our show today. We're going to go on break here real quick, and we'll come back. But, you know, Lisa has been a big supporter, and I know that she's the one that has made the initial contact with us with the Unión Cívica many years ago. I'm talking like 10 years ago for the Cinco de Mayo parade, when in 2009, I believe it was, when we were coming back, because we almost lost the Cinco de Mayo, believe it or not, in our community. So I want to talk a little bit about that when we come back out of break. And we're going to talk more with Tony Mann from Local 668 in the UAW. So stick around. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Welcome back, mi gente. We're here live streaming from the Alpha Media Studios. And I'm here with my guest tonight, Tony Mann, who is the president of Local 668. And we're in a great discussion and giving information about the union, sometimes, which is, I believe, taken for granted. And it's nice to be able to be informed tonight by the president, Tony Mann, who's with me, and just to find out a little bit about the behind the scenes and how the local union actually supports the community. And I know that that's what it does because I've seen it. I've seen it firsthand, and I want to just ask Tony a little bit more about that. And let's go to someplace that many of us are familiar with, and that is the annual Cinco de Mayo. We're celebrating this year. We're gonna have it. It's the 43rd annual. And tell me, Tony, what does it mean to you when you hear about the Cinco de Mayo?
Togetherness. I mean, Local 668 has been part of the Cinco de Mayo parade for countless numbers of years, and we're going to continue to be part of that tradition. It's definitely been a part of the community in Saginaw. Saginaw has always had a large Hispanic population, and being part of the Cinco de Mayo from 668's point of view is definitely a necessity.
Well, we decided after live streaming on this show to see what type of response we would get, whether it would be favorable or not, to actually go forward with the Cinco de Mayo this year, still during a pandemic. But I think we're pretty much in favor. Everybody was real favorable. And I was really happy to see a message from you saying that, you guys are behind us 100%. So thank you for that comment. And are you going to ride on a float? Are you going to be like on a decorated float or a car or you know what? Better yet, let's have you walking on the street in front of a banner saying Local 668, because I know they've had them out there before.
We have them, Larry. So wherever you want me at, that's where I'll be.
Yeah,
I'll be out there to support. And and I understand a lot of folks' concerns with COVID, the pandemic. I've lost some coworkers that were very, very near and dear to me. And it's a very scary situation.
Yeah, it is. It is. But as we had said in the past, 2 years into this now, this pandemic, and we kind of know pretty much what it takes to be safe. The vaccines, I've been a proponent of that all along, and wearing the mask, and sometimes we get mixed information, but I think obviously it's not done on purpose, but it's to inform us to stay healthy. And the Cinco de Mayo will be outside, all of it, from the parade to the Huntington Event Park Festival. Everything's going to be outside, so I think we're going to be pretty safe with
Yes,
it. And
I agree, definitely. Outside events, we have all learned through this pandemic how to social distance, and we're learning the proper PPE, personal protective equipment that we need to wear, masks, gloves, things of that nature when we're handling food. So we're learning how to live a different way, but a safer way. And I think that having the Cinco de Mayo is just another way for us to come together safely and get some of our life back.
yeah, and we want to invite the whole community, not just Hispanics, although we're celebrating the contribution of Latinos in our community, but we invite everybody because we're all part of this Greater Lakes Bay region, and it's just one of the celebration that makes our community so great. I want to mention some of our chat listeners here. Isabel Galaviz, she's listening from Hartford, Michigan. Her name, I said it, Isabel Galaviz. She says, great going, being involved, Familia Galaviz. And she says, way to be there for making the change. And there's also somebody on here named Deb Anklum.
Yeah.
She says, so proud of you, son. Tell me about that one.
So that's my mother.
Your mama.
Yeah, my mama.
There's nothing like a Latino son to their mama, right? I know this myself, but yeah, okay. So, Deb, I know that you must be so proud of him, and we're proud of him as a representative of the Latino community here in Saginaw. And we want to see great things coming from Local 668, and we will continually support them. I'm talking the Unión Cívica Mexicana. And Tony, tell me a little bit about.
Really quick.
Go ahead.
We're gonna take one more break so that we can get back into recording our segments.
What happened here?
I goofed on something. I'll admit that.
It happens.
But we're gonna take one more break, and then we're gonna get back into it.
Okay, we're gonna go on break here again. For those of you who are watching and listening, and we'll be back again coming out of the break with Tony Mann from Local 668.
You're listening to Gente On Air on WSGW.
Welcome back, mi gente. Thank you for being with me this evening and this cold January day. And we're here at the Alpha Media Studios, and we're talking with Tony Mann, who's the president of the Local 668, and that's Mann, M-A-N-N. I'm not just saying Tony Mann. I'm saying Tony Mann. That's his last name, M-A-N-N. And Tony is here, and we're so glad that they are giving us information about what the local actually does in our community, because they do a lot. And one of the instances I talked about on the last segment was their involvement with the Unión Cívica Mexicana. and they do so much more. And Tony, I want to give you the opportunity to just talk a little bit more about what you've done with the First Ward Community Center, as well as other entities in the community.
So currently, I sit on the board of directors for the First Ward Community Center. Also, I sit on the board of directors for the United Way of Saginaw as well. And those are two great organizations, nonprofits that help out in the community. First Ward had their laser program. Unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of these after school programs have been shut down or delayed because of COVID, and it's a real shame because a lot of the kids out there need these programs in order to survive, in order to eat, in order to engage, in order to have somewhere to go after school, because either the parents are working to support their families. And it's when these programs are shut down, it makes it difficult for families, parents, and children to survive. So we definitely need to get back into that, and the First Ward and United Way both do a fantastic job on reaching out.
Well, I know the First Ward came through for you, Local 668 during the strike. They allowed you to have your operations set up right there.
Yeah. First Ward went above and beyond by allowing us to. We called it the command center, by having our command center across the street, right from the foundry. So we had a bird's eye view, everything that was going on from start to finish over there, so we could see everything that was people on the strike line, making sure that our people were safe, that our people were fed. I can't say enough good things about First Ward and all the good things that they did for UAW Local 668. That is something that we will never forget, their generosity.
And how long did that strike last that time?
That strike lasted for 41 days, but it seemed like a lifetime, I'll tell you that.
Yeah. I remember that. And we were so supportive of you guys because, like I said, the background that the Unión Cívica Mexicana has, with Local 668 is so important. And sometimes I think that I'm fortunate to know this information, but sometimes I don't think the younger generation knows so much, in regards to what the union actually does. Unless your parent is a union and they make you go out there and strike, because I've seen that, But what would you tell your younger family members, say your children or even your nephews, people who are knowledgeable by name only of the union? What would you tell them?
Well, let's start with my children. So my children are unlucky because I actually had he was 3 years old at the time, and there's a picture that we posted on Facebook on the UAW page where I actually have him out there holding a picket sign, and there's some video of him, cars honking and him looking at the cars, and that sign is actually bigger than he is. So hopefully someday he becomes a union official or gets himself involved in the UAW, and he'll have something to look back on and say, this is what I did when I was a kid. Now, for some of my other family members who have never been involved in a union, I would say get involved, understand, look and see what the unions do for the community, because it's very important to understand how a community works, and a community is measured by its citizens.
Yes. And one of the citizens that we talked about was Lisa Mora Jackson. And I bring her name up again because she was instrumental. I remember in contacting me many years ago in 2000, I think it was 2009, when we almost lost the Union Civica, almost lost putting on the Cinco de Mayo parade, as well as the festival that we have for the last 40 years. And Lisa had said, she wanted Local 668 to help if they could and be involved. And I think they were, getting ready and doing a banner, producing a banner and possibly a float. I can't remember, but how has she approached you in regard to the Cinco de Mayo and the celebration for Latinos in our community?
Her first question was, are we going to do it? And of course, she is always 100% on board for anything not just Latino, but anything community driven. Lisa has been at the foundry much longer than I have. I transferred into the gray iron back in February of 2017. Before that, I was at Flint Truck and Bus. Before that, I was in Lansing. Before that, Saginaw Delphi. So I've kind of been a gypsy, so to speak. But Lisa is definitely through and through UAW 668, and she's here for the community.
She's awesome. She really is over there. And Julia, I've got to mention Julia Perez. She's one of my contacts there because they buy quite a few dinners from us for the patitos at the Civica. And Ricardo is over there. There's a number of people that support us, and we want to say we support them. And there's people that are on the live stream here that are supportive of you. And one of them is Deb how do you say it? Anklam? Anklam. And tell me who this person is.
Deb Anklam is my mother. And she she raised me. My mom was a tough woman. She's a bartender for 40 years. Worked 3 jobs. It was and that goes back to the first ward. So there was many a times where she would be working. I would go to first ward, play basketball, eat. Sometimes I'd be there for breakfast. So first ward has always played a huge role in my life, and it'll always have a special place in my heart. And my mom knows what first ward means to me. And, she was excited when I became a part of the board of directors over there. So it's it's very interesting how everything comes full circle.
Yeah, well, she's on here saying so proud of you, son, with a big old red heart. So kudos to Mama out there, Deb Anklam, as well as Isabel Galavis, she's saying way to be there for making the change, and she is coming to us from Hartford, Michigan. Great going, being involved. Familia Galavis. And we also have, somebody on the other side here, Chuch Casares. He's saying, Casares is his last name. He's got a hashtag with Ford, with a strong Ford there. But he's saying, I'm out at work in Livonia watching. Man, there's really people watching from all over. It's not just Saginaw. He says, I'm out at work in Livonia watching. Good thing I'm on a union break. LOL. Shoot, thanks for listening and supporting the show. And good for you, man. You're out there working hard for the money, as we've said. So tell me, Tony, in 2019, we the community celebrated the 100th anniversary of manufacturing at Saginaw Metal Casting Operations. What can you tell me about that?
So the Gray Iron Foundry started in September of 1919.
Wow.
Long time ago, right? Some of those guys are still working there right now. It started off in its heyday, 1971. It had a little under 7,000 employees, 11,500 if you include the nodular.
Wow.
Both factories were represented by Local 668. In 1995, they introduced aluminum into the facility. And then in 2004, we poured our last iron block. So really celebrating all of the change and diversity that has to do with the foundry is really what they were celebrating for that 100 years. And as we move forward, we are now working on pouring parts for the electric vehicles. So some of the structural integrity of the vehicle, we're going to be taking over some of that work, and hopefully we can take over a whole lot more so we can get those numbers back up to where they were in their heyday.
Wow. And that was 50 years ago, 1971.
1971.
7,000 employees. Wow. And you know what? I forgot all about the nodular. I remember I had some uncles that worked there, and then it was tore down in the 90s or the 2000s. I can't remember.
I think they shut down in either the late 80s, early 90s, which was sad because that facility, I believe, went online in 1966. So it really didn't have that longevity that General Motors and the UAW expected. But unfortunately, some things happen like that.
Yeah. And I know we were talking when we were not live streaming, but we were talking about the local 668 hall that was over there on Washington Avenue or Washington Street. I don't even know what that is, but it's right there. It was right there on the edge of the 6th Street Bridge. How many of you out there remember local 668 hall? Tell me about your experience there, Tony.
So the first time I ever went into that hall, it was like a castle to me. It was right around 1984, 85, somewhere in there. And that's the first time I had ever been to a union meeting. My father took me there one Sunday, and that was just spectacular to me. I remember the big glass windows that were in the front. There was a bowling alley in the basement. I mean, it was just a beautiful, beautiful building. And unfortunately, it's not there anymore.
Yeah, I have vivid memories as well. Standing up in quinceañeras and the hall. It was on the upstairs. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And
Yep.
and then it had the stairwell and the bowling alley. Yes, I forgot about that. I mean, that really was a beautiful hall, and I can remember my grandfather being so proud of that. And I had told Tony I kind of remember when it was being built, but I think it was a little bit later. Um, in the late 60s, I remember. So it was relatively a new hall, and so many of our events for the community went on there, especially, like I said, the Mexican quinceañeras, and that was the hall that took away probably some of the rentals from the Union Civica.
Quite possibly.
Yeah, but then it came to an end, of course, and it was knocked down. But I remember this last summer driving over there. I wanted to see where the 6th Street Bridge went into Carlton, and that was knocked down there, and I have memories of that. And I kind of seen where the hall was, and I just thought, wow, things change, nothing ever, that's a guarantee in life. Nothing ever stays the same, but local 668 had that beautiful hall. Where are you guys now? Where are you located?
So right now we're at 2104 Farmer Street.
Farmer Street.
Farmer Street. Yep. Farmer Street Hall, which we're actually, and I'm going to put a little plug in here for local 668. We're actually having our Hunters Banquet this Saturday. Tickets are still available. Anybody that's interested. And basically all the proceeds go to scholarships for our dependents, and we actually donate scholarships to the Saginaw Community Foundation.
Wow.
So anybody interested in coming, hit me up on Facebook, give me a call at the hall, and we will definitely accommodate you.
Okay, what's the name of that again? The Hunters
Banquet. So it's our annual Hunters Banquet that we've had. It's been going on for the last 14 years. And basically what we do, we raffle off hunting items, guns, knives, crossbows. Your ticket gets you wild game dinner, free beer and wine with alcohol, or with purchase of a ticket, as long as you're of age. And it's definitely a good time.
Wow. Okay, so if you can, this Saturday, the Hunters Ball, and where's it going to be at?
It's on Farmer Street.
On Farmer Street, at the hall.
2104 Farmer Street, right?
Okay, so support local 668 in their endeavors, and those proceeds go to scholarships for the community, Saginaw Community Foundation. And can anybody that is a child of somebody who works or is a part of local 668 apply for those scholarships?
Correct. So it is for active employees' dependents and for retirees' dependents.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Helping in the educational realm as well. Local 668. I've got also some people on the live stream here who they're saying, keep up the good work, Tony. And how are they doing on the microchip for the auto industry? That's coming from Tony Cuellar.
Well, that's a good question. So the microchip seems to be a up and down situation, a roller coaster almost, to speak. How they say you're playing with my emotions. Well, that's what they're doing with these microchips. 1 minute they're they find them and there's a million of them, and then the next minute they're all gone. So unfortunately, China, and this is where I'm going to get on my soapbox here for a minute. This is where corporate greed overtakes human need. And what I mean by that is a lot of these manufacturing jobs used to be in-house. A lot of things were American made. If those things continued to be American made, we wouldn't be in the situation that we're in right now. Right now, we are being held hostage, and I say that loosely, by China and other foreign countries because they produce a lot of the goods that we import in-house. And if we continued to keep those manufacturing jobs in the United States, we wouldn't have the problem that we have right now.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I know Tony Cuellar set that one up. But anyways, that's good information to know. And the Tony's also mentioning there the new car lots are empty. So, this is part of how we interact with the community and we get feedback and all. Do you want to expound on that any bit about what he's saying there?
Well, absolutely. I mean, back to the chip situation. The reason that the car lots are empty is because the chips are being withheld, or it's COVID, or whatever the case may be, or they're out on a shipping container somewhere in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, there's a million excuses of why we don't have chips, but the big reason is why aren't we building them here? General Motors at one time had a chip factory in Kokomo, Indiana, and they shut it down in order to save money and get rid of American manufacturing jobs. And now they're paying for it.
Wow, that's good information. And sometimes we take it for granted. Those of us who may not completely understand the auto industry and what's happening because we don't have the insight that a worker might, or somebody who is working, in the white collar and the blue collar there at the plant or whatever. So it's good to know this information. And where would somebody find out more about the ins and outs and what's going on there in the plants? Is it on your website there with Local 668, or where would they find out information?
It's on ours. It's on, a lot of the locals have public pages. We have a public Facebook page that anybody can see at any time, and we put updates on there periodically. But really, call the hall if there's questions. I love to talk to people 24/7. I mean, that's why I got into this, is so that I could meet with people who either want to be educated or don't understand. The old saying, reach one, teach one, and I believe that still holds true.
Yes, it does. And then Juan Chantaka here, he says, are they going to build a plant in Dow to make the chips?
Now, I've heard rumors that they want to build, they want to have Dow start making something, but I don't know the exact details. I know that there have been talks about reopening, I should say, the Kokomo, Indiana plant, because that plant was geared towards making chips. But we'll see what happens. I mean, when it comes to these big corporations, they say one thing and they do something else.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I want to give a shout out to the UAW for participating, of course, in the Cinco de Mayo parade. It is coming up in less than 4 months from now. But the reason I bring it up again is because they were always big supporters. Since 2009, I've been kind of the operational manager for the Cinco de Mayo, the chairman, if you will. And they have always been supportive. And I have to give a shout out to UAW Region 1D past president Gerald Kareem. Is that how you say it?
Yeah, Gerald Kareem was our regional 1D director for, I believe, a term of 12 years. Gerald is a very good personal friend of mine. I talked to him just about 3 days ago.
And how's he doing in his retirement?
He enjoys it, but Gerald is a very busy man. Gerald likes to stay active in the community. And Gerald is also on the board of directors for First Ward Community Center. So Gerald never sits still for too long.
He was also very, like I said, supportive of the Cinco de Mayo in the midst of being the vice president of this huge conglomerate that we call the union.
Yeah.
So thank you, Gerald, again. And Tony, I just want to ask you, when we look back at the gray iron plant, and we know, now it's the metal castings plant, and it's very much was the American dream for so many of our ancestors. And what I mean by that is that that's where they could make their money. That's where, so many of the migrant workers, like I said at the top of the show, they came to the Saginaw area to work the fields, but stayed here because of the gray iron plant in General Motors. It's why so many Mexicanos stayed here, and why we're here. Well, at least I know my family, so many of my family, and I come from a huge family from the Diaz side of 1,000 that we counted in our last census, and we're going to be having a reunion in a couple of months. But how do you think it's looked upon today by, say, the younger generation, and do we need to instill a little bit more about that history and the importance?
I don't think the union itself has changed. The glamour of working for the big three has changed. It definitely has changed. An entry-level employee who comes in now off the street will make $16.67 an hour. They have no retirement plan. Their health insurance is not the same as a traditional employee. The perks and the benefits of working for General Motors, Ford, Chrysler just isn't there anymore. So I really don't think that it holds the luster that it used to back in the day.
In so many of our I don't want to say ancestors, I'm talking about our uncles
Correct.
and
Right. Yeah.
our grandfathers and all. I mean, that's what you did. You graduated from high school, you either went in the service or you worked in the plant. I mean, those were the options in those days, and they made really good money, and they had great benefits. And we're in a different era now, and the pandemic has changed everything as well. I mean, we're really in changing times. But what are your final thoughts here this evening that you want to share with us?
These big corporations definitely have to make a change, and a change for the better. Nobody wants to work for a company that isn't going to pay them their fair share. If you could make $16.67 an hour working at General Motors, or you can make $17 an hour working at McDonald's, what would you rather do? I mean, it's if the companies don't change their thought process, and if they don't slow that greed wheel down a little bit, they're going to find themselves in a lot more trouble than when they were in the early 80s. So they definitely need to back down.
I want to ask you something. Do you know Cindy Estrada? Her name,
Yeah.
She just
Yep.
came to me. I know her too. Great gal out there in the Detroit representing the unions.
Very smart. Very smart woman.
So there you have it. All that we talked about today are reasons to support your local auto workers and local 668. We are most appreciative of them supporting local endeavors in the nonprofit sector, such as the Unión Cívica Mexicana and the First Ward. We're happy that they are supporting our celebration of Latino contributions with our annual Cinco de Mayo. And I want to thank local 668 President Tony Mann for coming in here tonight on a snowy night. And I just want to say congratulations, Tony, to you on being the first Latino president of the union. Felicidades, and thank you so much for being with me tonight. Really,
Thank you.
It's been an honor. And I want to thank everyone for participating and tuning in as we try to bring good info from a Latino perspective. 2022 marks 27 years since I started Mi Gente publishing the magazine, and I feel extremely blessed to bring you Mi Gente on air here at WSGW. So I want you to stay safe, stay warm, and continue to tune in, whether it's on the podcast or on the show, on radio, or on this live stream. Okay. Until next week, I'm your host, Larry Rodarte, saying hasta luego, mi gente. Stay safe. So here we are with Tony still. I always want to give a little bit of extra time on the live stream, and I think the show went pretty good tonight. What do you think, Tony?
I think it went fantastic.
It's really something because if you're not if you don't have a father or an uncle or somebody who's involved with the union itself, sometimes you just don't know the what's going on with the unions and their actual contributions that they're making to the community. And I think that's part of why I asked you on the show tonight, because I wanted people to be aware of that. I wanted them to know your contributions to the Unión Cívica Mexicana. It's been very appreciative from not only me, my board, but the members themselves. When we talked about the lawnmower and Lupe's lawnmower, we just talked about that partnership. And I hope that we can continue that, of course, because, the Unión Cívica Mexicana, it's got union in it. That's the name.
That's it.
It's the same, principle why, I'm sure those men in 1945 started that organization to fight for civil rights, equal rights. And that's what, part of what the union today is even fighting for, as well as, so many of those benefits. But how do you feel everything is going right now for the union?
I think there's a struggle right now, especially over the last couple of years. The union has definitely taken a black eye, so to speak, because of a few individuals that made some bad choices, some bad personal choices, some bad financial choices. And it definitely gave a lot of people a negative perspective of the UAW. Kind of like the Teamsters back in the 60s, right? When they got mixed up in some little mess that they had going on. But, you can't let a few individuals ruin it for everybody else. So there are a lot of good people that are involved in the union. The union does a lot of good things. And I just hope that people continue to see what the UAW and what the other unions do for the community and how they help, because that is really what we are all about.
Yes, nicely said. And it's important. And again, that's, I think, part of the reason why I wanted to bring you on here. And just tell me what's next for Tony Mann as president, as well as citizen here in Saginaw.
That's a good question.
Because you got all these kids.
I do. I got 7 kids. I have 5 boys and 2 girls. And I'll tell you what, the 5 boys were 10 times easier than my 2 daughters.
Yeah.
But what's next for me right now is our Hunters Banquet for the near future. I would say later on down the road, I am going to work diligently to do whatever I can. Our bargaining chairman, Manny Dosel, working together with him to try to get some work into that plant, grow the business, and make a future for not only ourselves, but for our children and our children's children. That plant, SMCO Gray Iron Foundry, has been open for over 100 years, and I'd like to see it last for 100 more.
And Manny Dulso is a name that I'm familiar with. I remember when at one point he had a restaurant. Do you remember that?
His mom had the restaurant, right?
Well, no, I think it was his.
Was
actually.
It his?
His mom helped him, and his mom has a history. She was the entrepreneur who started Maria Elena's.
That's right.
With her husband at the time, Hernan Hernandez, and Joanna. Her mother was Maria Elena. And how do I know all this stuff? But Joanna was a good friend of mine through the years before she passed a few years ago. May she rest in peace. But Manuel is her son, and I'm so proud of him too, and what he does.
Absolutely.
With the local.
Absolutely. Manny is a very bright, intelligent, energetic man who has the weight of the world on his shoulders at times. It's his job is not an easy job, being the bargaining chairman. Nobody's ever happy to see him, right? Because they always have a complaint or they're done yelling at somebody else. So he's basically the last line of protection there for the hourly workers. Mm-hmm. But he does a fantastic job. He works hard at his job, and we're lucky to have him.
Well, it takes a certain kind of person, and Joanne, she didn't raise no fool there.
That's
I know that.
absolutely correct.
Oh, thinking of Joanna. But thank you again so much. It's been really enlightening. I know Chandler here has been enlightened and cultured again with our show here, and it's wonderful to see.
Every time I learn something new every single time.
We always got to continue learning, but it's so good to tap into that information that is coming from our local, and the local union, because like I said, if you're not involved with it, I know my family no longer is to the capacity that we were when my grandfather, of course, was working at the plant and part of the local 668. But when he did, it really meant something. It was really important for him and for his daughter, my mother, Annie. And, it just, it transcends through the generations. And after 50 years, here I am talking about Local 668. Can you believe that, Aunt Liz? Anyway, so thank you again, Tony, for being with us. We're going to sign off now from Mi Gente On Air live stream here at WSGW Radio Studios Alpha Media. I said that all wrong, but you know what I mean. Thank you.